Welcome back to Essential Enthusiasm. This is episode 12. It is the weekly podcast where me, Tara Swiger, and my friend Jolie of Jolie Creates, we talk about what we're reading, what self-care habits we're trying to implement, or how we're taking care of ourselves, and we answer questions from you, our darling listeners. If you are a member of the free Facebook group, Take Care of Yourself with Tara Swiger, you get access to our live recording of this. So we have people watching our live recording right now so they can ask questions and chat with us. Go check that out if you're not already there. So, what are you reading this week?
So, just picked up a book this morning because I remembered we had the podcast today. So I picked up a book that has been in my Kindle Unlimited library for a really long time. And it was just kept putting it off. And then today I was like, nope, it's a quick and easy book. I'm going to pick it up and read it. And it's called Chasing Excellence by Ben Bergeron. And it's kind of a weird fit for this podcast, or for me. I don't know how people view me, but Ben is a CrossFit coach. So he coaches the top athletes in the CrossFit Games, and in the 2016 Games, he coached 3 athletes, and the top male and the top female athletes were his clients or his athletes, however you want to view it. So he then wrote a book after that season about how he coached them in order to win the games, because his point is that the CrossFit Games, for those of you who don't know, I mean, CrossFit's a big thing, right? But the CrossFit Games are like the top 40 athletes in the sport go and compete, and they're all incredibly, incredibly fit men and women. And so what separates the people who end up on the podium from the people who don't? And from his point of view, it's the way they approach the workouts, not physically, but mentally. And so that's what he wrote his book about.
That's interesting. So it's like how to succeed. I think a lot of times we think like mental strength or grittiness or a lot of this like mental and emotional stuff is to help you do mental or emotional work. But it's like, no, even to like make your body physically do something, your brain and your body have to be in alignment with what you're going to do, right?
Right, 100%. And it's also things like the CrossFit Games, you don't know what's going to come up. They are, in general, it's going to test fitness, but some years there might be an ocean swim, some years there might be a pool swim, some years you might be doing handstand walks, and other years you're doing something else. So you don't actually know what all the events are going to be, and sometimes until like 20 minutes before the event. So you have to be, really mentally tough to be able to handle everything that can get thrown at you.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And like it's, as you were talking, it reminded me I have a friend who owns a CrossFit gym with her husband, and she just had her second baby, and her first kid is like a year and a half. And so she has 2 kids under 2. And yes, she was saying mental toughness of physical exercise has like prepared her. And then also actually owning a business and all the stress of owning a business has like, she hopes prepared her for the mental toughness involved in having 2 kids under 2. So like, even if you're not a physical athlete, you still want to listen in, because I think we're going to talk about things that apply in a bunch of different areas, and including parenthood of young children.
Yes. So he has not written the book for people aspiring to be CrossFit athletes. Like, there's nothing about improving your physical fitness. There's nothing about that. It's about having excellence in all areas of your life. So you don't just want to be excellent like physically, you want to be excellent in your parenting and in just like your lifestyle and your self-care, how you feel about yourself, like all of these things. It's never just about like one area. For me, I feel like more and more lately, the books that I'm reading are about excellence as a whole. Like there was always like a big thing of like work-life balance and separate the two, and your work is this and your life is this. And I feel like lately there's a lot more about like everything's the same. Like you have one life, and like your work and your home life and everything else, it's all a part of one big thing.
Definitely. Well, like we talked about with the four tendencies, right? Like that's about building habits through knowing yourself. And then we talked about how knowing ourselves like helps us with our partners and you with your kids. And like the whole thing about like having patience and working hard, like that we talked about with Gary Vee's book, that also is going to, once you start thinking like that, or like once you start having a growth mindset, it infects all areas of your life, ideally. Because like none of us, like the whole point of having a super successful business isn't to have the business, it's to have the life that provides for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the skills you learn, well, I just said this on as I was recording my other podcast, that like the skills, like business is just a tool to help you learn all those skills, because you can't shy away from it. Like you can't shy away from the mindset growth in order to build an awesome business. But the point isn't for the business. The point is for your life. It's like, even if you shut down your business tomorrow, all of the stuff you've read and learned is going to apply to the next thing you do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I also like reading these books from the point of view of being a parent. I feel like all of the books I read about mindset and growth mindset and like grit are all things that I'm trying to desperately teach my kids. So like one of his major core beliefs is this philosophy of never whine, never complain, never make excuses. And like if I could get my kids to like embody those three principles, oh, life would be so much easier. So the thing is though, like it's annoying from just a parent perspective when your kids whine, when they fuss, when they're constantly complaining. But it's also just like when I hear my husband do it brings the mood down. Like if you're driving and like you're stuck in traffic and it's just like complaining about what this car is doing and complaining like that it's taking so long and why'd we go this way, and it's just like you can't control anything about this situation other than your attitude, and you're like ruining my mood by having a really negative attitude, so stop it.
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. If we could literally teach this to everyone in our life. And I know that I whine and complain, but like when my husband does it, it's so much worse
Yeah.
because it's impacting me. And
Well,
like, go on.
oh, I was gonna say, so there's what's the word? Social bonding can be
Mhm.
done over complaining. Like that's the way we form friendships, is if I say to you, like if I rant to you about something that's bugging me in my real life, like yes, I'm complaining, but it's also like it is a way that we as social creatures bond. So I think like in certain instances, like when it's like, okay, I'm gonna sit next to you and I'm gonna just like, I need to get this off my chest, then I think it's okay. But when you're like in the moment and it's affecting everyone else's mood because you're complaining about stuff that's happening in that moment, that's when I like get really annoyed.
Totally. Because like it's different, like actually what we're doing, talking about our spouses, like complaining and how that changes our mood, like talking about that versus, oh my gosh, like this, like it just totally happened this morning. I was in a great mood and Jay was just grumpy about his day. And like I put on headphones because I was like, he wasn't really even verbally. I just, you feel it, right? Because he's not super verbal anyhow. He'll just be like in his little rain cloud mood on his own, and I will like put on headphones, go in a different room, like, because it is so easy to impact others. So when it comes to like no whining, no complaining, like I feel like when you decide to do that for yourself, you're also like honoring or respecting the people who are spending time with you and sharing their lives with you,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not bringing down their mood or their energy.
Yeah. I also have a philosophy of I won't complain behind someone's back about something that I haven't said to their face. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
if ever I'm talking either on here or to you or something that's bugging me about my husband, I've either had a conversation with him or, like, I'm getting it off my chest so I can have a conversation with him, like, in a different mindset. Like, I don't unproductively complain. Like if I'm not going to address the situation, then I need to just let it go. But like if it's something that I clearly need to work through, then maybe yes, I'll talk about it with a friend first, so I can
Yeah,
go in with a different mindset.
totally. It's totally it. And it's so important when you're working with other people too, to trust that if something comes up, they're not just going to be grouchy about it. Like if I do something ridiculous or I ask you to do something ridiculous with the videos, like I have to trust that you'll tell me, no, that's ridiculous. And so like I kind of think of the no complaining behind people's backs as being like an aspect of like having integrity and like having an integrity in all of your relationships and all of your communication, that you're not secretly mad about something but not telling someone.
Yeah. That's the one good thing about being in any form of relationship with me is I'm never secretly mad about anything, because if I'm mad, you're going to know about it, because I am incapable of hiding my feelings about anything.
Excellent. Well, hey, that's good news. But I mean, that education for your kids will be invaluable too, like because you want them to form like good, healthy bonds where like everyone's being open and honest.
Yeah.
And also just not being people. So the other thing about complaining that I noticed is that people who are like perpetually annoying and they're complaining about their life, tend to be people who are not taking ownership of their role in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So like I find that to be excruciating because of all of my research and reading on growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So when I'm talking to somebody and they have such this is just how it is, I always get screwed over, nobody ever treats me right. What would help their situation is for them to look at the ways that they have caused that situation and make different decisions going forward. So not like beating yourself up for the past, but just recognizing the parts of it you had a hand in so that you can make a different decision later.
Mm-hmm.
People don't really like to hear that very often.
I was thinking that. I think I must at times be like a really annoying person to be around. I just don't let them like stop complaining about that. Like, what are you doing?
Well, there are people that like Jay will be friends with that will complain to him and he'll come home and tell me. And I'm like, but that's their decision. Like they made a decision to get in a relationship with a person who is untrustworthy, or they made a decision to, a lot of times it's bad decisions on their part. Like they actually chose to do the wrong and like the moral, ethical sense thing, and then they're suffering the consequences and they're complaining about the consequences. Mm-hmm. It's like, you caused this. Don't whine to me about it. Mm-hmm. Yes, but I've been like this. Like I was really annoying in college for my roommates. I know for sure because I at a young age I wanted to feel like I had ownership of my life and that my decisions mattered. So I started looking at everything of like, how can I make a decision to change my life? Like from age 14 or 15, because I wanted to change my life. Like I was in a situation I didn't want to stay in. And that kind of mindset and perspective on the world made me say to other people, well, you could change this. And that's annoying to hear. So you have to say it when it's appropriate. But that I think has also served me, because when things are bad, I'm like, okay, how could I change this? Like what decisions could I make that would shift this in some way? Mm-hmm. And then that helps you stay away from the complaining.
Yeah, I think you and I are very similar in that aspect, because I also, from a very young age, was like, people think of it as like determined and driven, but it was just like needing to change things in my life. And so, yeah, like I moved out of my house, I said to my parents, like, I'm moving out after graduation. And instead of it just being something I said, like, I literally moved out of my house like 3 days after graduation. And then, like, when I didn't like my situation in university, I was like, right, I'm moving overseas, and like just did it. Like, I've always just been that person who's like, I don't like this part of my life, so we're going to change it. And then I change it. And so I get really frustrated when people don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like, you said a couple of things there that is interesting, which is one is that people think it's like determined or ambitious. Like people, when they see it in my life, will say that it's ambitious. And I'm like, no, I was just trying to escape something. Like I just didn't want to recreate what had been created in my childhood. Mm-hmm. And so that is like, I'm determined not to do that, but I'm not determined just to be like, an ambitious person. And I don't even know, and this must be something you think of in parenthood, is you're not creating that kind of childhood situation for your kids. So then how will they have the determination to move forward? This is something actually I talk with my mom a lot about with my little brothers, is they're 16 and 18 years younger than me. So they had a very different childhood. And she's like, they haven't gone through any hardship. Should I create hardship? Like, should I, like, how do I create a situation in which they are determined to grow up, to make good decisions, because they don't have that determination based on their childhood situation? And I think that, like, that, I don't know how people recreate that for themselves, but I don't believe that, like, well, you had a great childhood, so you're screwed. You'll just be lazy your whole life.
Mm-hmm. So that's actually really interesting, because that's another point he talks about in this book, about how, I mean, this is true like on a physiological level in fitness, but also in life, that the only way to grow is through adversity and through pain. So like the way our muscles grow is we break them and then they repair themselves and they're stronger when they're repaired. And that's how you grow muscle. And like that's true in life. And he says, make yourself stronger by showing your body what strong feels like, and that our toughest days are our best days, because that's when we're forcing the most adaptation. And Gary Vee talks about this all the time, about how he feels bad for kids who, or for even his kids, or kids who have everything handed to them, because they don't know what it's like to struggle and to go through hard times. And so they have less, like, I don't even know what the word is, like comeuppance, like a desire to fight against the world.
Like grit or like
Yeah.
determination?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. But I mean, as we're talking about this, it's occurring to me that the good news is that life provides its own horribleness, its own bad situations for you to overcome. So things like the death of a partner or a parent or someone that's close to you, or the starting a business and not having it succeed in any way, the like only being able to get a horrible job, the like losing your job, like those are all adversities that actually that like Jay has dealt with, that have helped him like open his eyes to that kind of determination, because he had a really great childhood. And that I know some starship captains have gone through and then come out the other end with like a much stronger sense of where they want to go. So like failure and adversity, like, is really how you choose to look at it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, are you choosing to look at like, well, that just broke down my muscle, so now it's going to get stronger, so I can be stronger on this tough day? Or do you look at it like, oh no, everything's against me, there's nothing I can do, I just can't go on? That's entirely up to you and your framing of it.
Yeah. And I also think, you talk about like how we deal with this as parents. I'm conscious of what situations I put my kids in, and not just putting them in situations where they're going to do well. Like, you have to set yourself up for success but at the same time, like, so I made our family go rock climbing, and my husband was really nervous because we are not the most physically fit of a family. And like, he was like, oh, I'll look stupid. And I was worried, like, well, I'm not even gonna be able to do this. But I needed my kids to be in a situation where all of us were uncomfortable, because we had a great time and the kids loved it. And like, yes, it was hard, but like, we all gave it a go and we were all willing to look silly. And so I think like I purposely and intentionally sometimes put us in situations where I know we're going to be challenged and pushed outside our comfort zone, so that they have experience of like that story. I'm conscious of what stories I'm teaching my kids, and using the story of like, I did this thing, I thought it was going to be awful, I was uncomfortable, but we had a great time. Like, I try and intentionally set up situations where we're going to learn stories like that.
I love it. I love it. And that's like creating resilience, right? Mm-hmm. Like, not helping them avoid situations where they're fail, which, I mean, that's what Carol Dweck talks about so much in Mindset, is like having kids and school settings where if they get the wrong answer, like, they can keep working on it till they get the right answer, mm-hmm. right? Like, knowing that you don't stop just because it's hard and you don't know the right answer. And I totally remember that in school, that kids would be like, I don't know the answer. And like, that would be it. Like, they wouldn't go, okay, so we need to find the answer. We need to actually do the math. And that's one of Jay's favorite stories from his childhood, is like, he he had been told he was smart and a good student all of his life. So when he got his first C and his dad was disappointed, he basically thought that was completely broken and he was no longer smart or a good student. So he just like stepped away from school entirely because he had had a sense of self built on a fixed, you are smart, as opposed to we can do hard things and you are smart enough to figure things out even when they're hard. And so when that like you are smart thing broke, his identity around that, he was just like, okay, I'm all done.
Yeah.
Because parents didn't reinforce like, okay, how do you get this grade back up? What do you need to work harder at here?
Yeah.
It was just like, you got a bad grade. Why did you get a bad grade? That's horrible. You shouldn't get a bad grade.
Yeah. So we talk about that all the time because my son is, my oldest, is falling into the trap of I only want to do easy things so that I always appear smart. So what we've talked about is how I talk to him about like, okay, so let's say you do your times table work in 3 minutes and you get them all right, and another child works really hard and struggles and spends 10 minutes and maybe gets some wrong, but they've worked really hard for 10 minutes and like they stuck with it. Are you smarter than that child? And so we talk about like smart is not a thing. It's not a thing that you can be. You are not smart or not smart. It's a label other people put on us. But because that's what I was saying to him. I said, so right now you can do your times table in 3 minutes because it's easy. I said, what happens when you get to university and suddenly work is hard and you're the kid taking 10 minutes? Are you suddenly not smart? Is this something we can gain and lose? And so we talk about those lessons all the time because I think it's so important not to wrap your identity up around a label that essentially someone else is putting on you.
Totally, totally. And the same thing happens for people with like good looking or pretty, right? Like that you there's so many different labels we can put on kids, and if you focus on just that label, the minute that they take that on as their identity and then they lose it, it's like much harder than if your identity is just like you're going to keep going even when things are bad.
Right. And it's labels that other people are giving us and other people are taking away. Like it's not even that, okay, I feel I'm pretty and then like one day I don't. It's that you just let society tell you, oh, suddenly you went through your awkward teenage years and now you're not pretty anymore. Like, so I work so hard on like, we want to be kind. We want to be hardworking. We want, qualities that they can identify in themselves and that they can keep identifying and that no one else judges. No one else judges you how hardworking you are. Like that's something that you do.
Yes, totally. I totally love it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned to me that this book also talks about something about competence and excellence.
Yes. So
I want to hear about that.
He talks about so this idea of you can be complacent, you can be competent, or you can be excellent. So complacent is like the worst. Like you're just not even trying, you're skimming through, you're just, the bottom of the barrel complacent. Competence is where most of us get to, where we feel like we're trying our hardest and we're putting in the work, but we're not putting in the same amount of work as the people we look up to, but we're competent. We're doing good. We're happy. And then he talks about excellence, which is top of your game. You're giving your 100% every time. You're looking at, what needs to be done and you're giving it your best. And he talked about this idea of how competence is a harder place to be, whereas excellence is a harder place to get to, but an easier place to be. Because when you're competent, you have like maybe one shot at success. So in terms of athletes, you have one shot at the big championship game or one shot at hitting the home run out of the park. And if you fail, that's it. Like you have then decided you're a failure. But when you get to the point of excellence, you have 1,000 shots and you get less wrapped up in the success and failure of each individual one because you know that you're doing your best in everything. And, if you miss one shot, you have another one. And I thought that was really interesting.
That is, and it reminds me also of people how they talk about business, which like, this, your first dollar you make in your business is way, way harder than your 100th or your 1,000th dollar you make or your 100,000th dollar. Like there's so much more work that leads up to getting to that point. And once you Like that made me, when you said like it's harder to get to excellent but easier to be there, like it's much easier to maintain any size business than it is the road to getting there to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he
Because
even
you have
has
to
a
learn.
graph where like if complacence is like here and excellence is here, like it's like a hill and competence
Yeah,
at the top of the hill. And it's
yeah,
actually like if you could just get over that hump and go from competence down to excellence, like yes, it's so much easier. But the climb from complacent to competence is the hardest bit, and people give up. Like they get to the top and they're like, "Oh, I got here," and they just don't keep going.
right. Like they don't keep improving.
Yeah.
They're just like, okay, I got here, so I learned. I know everything I need to know. So I'm just going to chill here, but you don't chill there because the world moves on without you. Or like in the physical sense, like you get older and you lose strength. In the business sense, like new social media things pop up and new things change and your customers change. And so like you slide back down into complacent.
Right, right, because it's as easy to slide. It's easy to slide down. Like sliding down the hills on either side are easier than that climb back up. The other thing you talked about, the last thing I want to mention, because it was just something I didn't really think about this way before, was he mentions, of course, the 10,000 hour principle and that it takes 10,000 hours to get good at something, but not just 10,000 hours of doing the thing, but 10,000 hours of intentionally trying to improve at the thing. And so, like, I actually did the math and I was thinking, like, what's the minimum amount of time you could do 10,000 hours in? And, like, you can't do it in a year. Like, if you, 10,000 hours divided by 365 days is like 27 hours a day or something. Like, it's not possible to get excellent at something in a year. And it's not, it takes, I think if it was 8 hours a day, it was like 3.5, 4 years or something. And it was just like, I always try and get excellent in a year. Like I always, like, like I'm always like, I'll make a video a day for a year. And then if I wasn't excellent by the end of the year, I'd just be like, well, I suck. Like, and it's just like the time scale is so much bigger than you want
Yeah.
it to be.
So Malcolm Gladwell talks in his book Outliers, where he first talks about that 10,000 hour theory, that like it's 5 years if it's like your full time job, and it's like 10 years if it's not your full time job.
Yeah.
So like if your only job was making videos and that's 100% how you made your income, you could get to excellent in 5 years.
But it's
And if
so
it's
long.
not,
That's 5 years
I
too
know,
many.
no. That's the thing. But it's so crazy because everything, I feel like 5 years is actually the point in which people are feeling for the first time more confident and competent in their business. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but they think they should be there after a year. But like after a year, you've only learned how to start your business. You haven't learned how to continue to run your business.
That's actually really interesting because the moment you just said that, I realized, so I just celebrated my 5th year of launching Learn to Tech Edit, my online course where I make most of my income. And I just had my first 5-figure launch, which is a milestone I have been trying to hit for over a year, maybe 2 years. I've been, because it was just in my head, like, I just want that milestone. I just want it. 5 years, and I like really hyped up this launch though, and I was like, it's my 5th year, like this is a big year, let's add on all these goodies, and like I really put a lot of time and energy into it. But yeah, it's been 5 years of experience and 5 years of tweaking and 5 years of adjusting prices and changing platforms and technology. Like I finally got, it's not excellence, but I finally hit that milestone that to me matters.
Yeah, well, and I would argue you got excellent in how to launch this product.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the crazy thing about businesses. And I know this isn't a business podcast, but it's all going to relate in my head. But the crazy thing about businesses is that there's actually like a million things to get competent in, let alone excellent. Like, I don't know that I'm excellent in anything except for so far talking about business issues with people in a way they understand. Like that might be the only skill in my business I'm excellent at so far, because there are so many others, like the social media and the emails and the marketing.
I think
and then also
excellent at showing up consistently. I think you more than anyone, you always, no matter what's going on, like you show up consistently in some way.
Oh, well, thanks. But yeah, I've only gotten consistent like in my emails. It was back in 2014. So yeah, it was 2013 for my emails, and in 2014 I started the podcast. So that is like my emails were the first thing I did every week consistently. So my point is it took me a long time to even get to the point where that's a thing. And so we often want to give up or just beat ourselves up. Like even if we don't give up, if you beat yourself up, then you don't have the time and energy to work on the thing, whatever the thing is. So like whether it's like Di is here and she's like a baker, or whether you're a tech editor, or whether you are a mom, like you're or like even relationships, like Jay and I laugh about like how bad we were at some of the basics of being an adult for the first several years that we were like adult married people. It was bad. Like we can't believe that, right? And we worked on it though. And so that's like kind of excellent to hear. And I'm glad we put it in a timeline for people to give them a break if they're not excellent in like 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. So so that was kind of, so the book is, if you like sports, like I would recommend the book. It's an easy read, and he talks about so the whole framework of the book is laid out in the storytelling of the 2016 CrossFit Games. So like he talks about, you know, this event that happened, and then he frames it in like a lesson, like a mindset lesson. So for me, like I'm a huge sports fan. I love competition. I love people pushing themselves to like the best that humans can be, whether that's like space or whether that's, you know, athletics. So for me, it's like, it's as enjoyable a read as like a trashy chick lit romance or something. Like for me, it's that kind of book. Like it's just pure junk food. So it's on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have that, then it's free.
Yay! And we're going to talk in a couple weeks about how we read stuff, and Kindle Unlimited is an excellent deal. It's like $10 a month.
Yeah,
and
I think it's like £8.
Yeah,
which is
awesome.
the cost of one book.
Right.
And I probably read 10 minimum a month with Kindle Unlimited.
Oh my gosh. See, I don't find that many I like. Okay, we'll talk about that in an upcoming episode. So I wanted to say, if for those of you who are listening right when this comes out, I didn't tell Jolie I was going to say this, but I wanted to make sure I remember to say it. For those of you who are listening right when this comes out on Friday, it is likely that I still have a couple spots left in my essential oil study. Are you doing this as well, Jolie?
Not right at the moment, no.
Okay, totally cool.
If people are in the UK and they want to participate, send me a message because I'm happy to send out UK samples.
Yes, that's what we'll do, is anybody who hears this. And so if you hear this, message me that you heard it on Essential Enthusiasm. You can leave a comment wherever you're watching this. You can send me an email, Tara@taraswiger.com, and I will, if you're in the UK, I'll hook you up with Jolie. But the idea is that you get to, if you're brand new to essential oils, you don't already have an account with doTERRA, you get to try oils for your specific issues with a specific daily protocol and see if over the course of 7 to 10 days of the study, it helps you with your symptoms that you're dealing with. And it's totally free, but there are only a couple spots open. So message me, put a reply, a comment, or just talk to me on Instagram. I'm at Essential Enthusiasm.
Awesome.
Cool. So anything else before we go? If you want to get a question answered by us, send us a question. Join the Facebook group, Take Care of Yourself with Tara Swiger, and post your question there, and we will answer it.
Yep. Or you can follow either of us on Instagram. The links, if you're watching on YouTube, are in the description below. Tara's at Tara Swiger. I'm at Jolie Creates, or you can follow at Essential Enthusiasm.
That's right. And we will have all of this on essentialenthusiasm.com, links to the book, links to all the other books we mentioned. We mentioned Mindset and
Outliers.
Some other books. Outliers, that's right. We'll link to those up too. So yeah, thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, guys.